Adrian's got a house in Wood Lane. He's got a ground source heat pump, so he's the only person in Chippenham I know who's got a ground source heat pump. And he also went with a deep boring method, no shallow. So I'll hand over to Adrian.
Thanks, Matt. Yes, it's interesting actually listening to Elliot. Having gone through a lot of this stuff, most of the negative points that come up, you can actually work around them, or technology solves them already. So it's been, when I first started looking at heat pumps a couple of years ago, I held all of those like anti-heat pump feelings, but I'm a member of the Workshop Plant Alliance, and they hold, we've got like 6 different groups, and they have talks maybe once a month. I remember going to an air source heat pump talk by a Mitsubishi guy, and then I hassled him afterwards for his data sheets and to ask him lots of questions. And I was absolutely gobsmacked that what I thought I knew was completely wrong about heat pumps. And so I then sat down, because I'm a bit more of a numbers and a maths type person. I have to persuade myself that it's going to pay back in carbon and it's going to pay back in money, and then I can fit it somewhere that I'm happy with. And many of these things, they've taken me 6 to 9 months to persuade myself and then come up with a plan. And I'm a value for money person as well, so I like to do everything myself unless I absolutely have to get someone else to do it, which usually includes plastering. So I don't plaster, but I do everything else. But yeah, a lot of the negatives, when you look into it yourself in detail, a lot of these things have gone away. And at the end of the day, sometimes we have to make a compromise to do the right thing to have a future effectively. Right, which is our button. Let's have a little open button, sit down as well. Is it just space, isn't it? Yeah, you've got a bit of a mixture on this one. So I just half-inched this from another chat that I did. So yeah, so I guess for me, it's not all about money. It comes from knowing far too much about the climate, which I learned about 5 years ago, and I've kept learning since then. And at the same time as learning, I've been trying to lower my household footprint, and that in itself leads on to a great deal of learning as well. And then there's talking to people and learning stuff. So for me, I started with an audit. How could I fix in my home? So I had a standard 19-inch open coal fire, and I think they're about 15% efficient. And then I've got a wood burn version that slotted into the hole, and that was about 30% efficient. I have micro-bore 1974 radiators that were all furred up, and I thought, right, what that costs in carbon? So I weighed my wood for a month and worked out, all that sort of stuff. And then I sat down and got a few data sheets and worked out that if I got myself some solar panels, then perhaps they'd be able to drive a heat pump a bit later on. I could stop using my fire, block up the chimney like Matt did, which is a massive source of draft draw through your house. I did a lot of numbers. I like numbers, I like spreadsheets, which I'm a bit odd. But effectively, I thought that I could save about over 90% of my carbon and £300 or £400 in money as well. And that was probably about 4 years ago when I sat in bed doing that because it was so cold. So it's interesting. And along the way, looking stuff up, you can find out pretty much anything on the web. And these days, they've invented AI, which is Bard or ChatGPT. And it's unbelievable how much quicker it is. You just ask a question and then decide if you believe the answer. And a lot of the time, you can tell it to give you data sheets, give you where it got its info from. Absolutely fantastic. So my first thing, it took me about 9 months, and thank you very much, Zero Chippenham, for persuading me that it was a good idea to get panels. So that's my house just there, and they were so in-your-face fantastic, I thought, that I put a little sign up outside my house that said how much they cost, because that's what we all want to know. How much does it cost? How much does it save a year? And then for me, it's like, what's that saving carbon? And then why? So the key thing is actually to get on with it. So that's the key thing in all of these things. It's like, well, whatever it is you fancy next, focus on it, and then get it done. Then you can move on to the next one. But everyone's house is different. There's always constraints, but there are other ways, other than putting on your roof. You can have a tracking panel from they're called Solar Bee. They're a UK bunch. Cost you a bit more, but if you totally strapped for space, they're much more efficient. I'm actually thinking of adding another set of panels as a carport over where I park my car. And you can also have ground-mounted ones as well. If you've got a big back garden but rubbish, like chopped up roof space, that's a way to do it as well. So yeah, and you've got to be a little bit mindful about your shadow, and there are also limits on how many kilowatt hours you can put up, so I'm going to test the system. And so I probably want to put up about another 7 kilowatts, and that might take me over the limit of what I'm allowed to do, at which point I'll get a battery. So the sooner the better. Things are not looking too healthy, and everything's still going in the wrong direction. And as first world people, we've got a lot more wealth than third world people. And whilst we think it might be expensive, if we don't get on and buy all of our stuff in mass volume, then the third world people are not going to be able to ever afford it. So we're the ones that drive the cost down for everybody else in the world. We've got access to do these things. So it's not just panels, it's everything you can think of. And the more of this stuff we will do in our first world, then the sooner those in the second world and the third world can get on with it as well, because it comes into their price bracket. So we've talked a lot about insulation. Again, being a cheapskate, I bought all mine second hand. I remember at 6 o'clock in the morning, this pantechnic arrived up Wood Lane, blocked off the whole lot, and he got out this, like, 2 sets of 3.5 metre stacks of rigid insulation boards that I put on my garage. And there they sat for 2 years whilst I got on with my DIY. But I was really pleased to see the insulation stack going down that I actually did in between the rafters inside my house. Because I opened up my kitchen to see the underside of the rafters and the same with the attic. And all this insulation just went up there. And you can buy second-hand semi-damaged stuff. I'm a great advocate of DIY, but I totally get that not everybody can do that. And then I sat down and did all my sums, and I realised that, one thing I should say by the way, a modern boiler with its 90% efficiency, that's the headline figure, they've also got a seasonal coefficient of performance, and they don't always operate at 90%. Most especially if the water coming back into the boiler is above 55 centigrade, then they drop to about 60. So all of these comparisons with gas boilers and heat pumps, they're way stacked in the favour of the gas boilers. When you actually look at the data sheet for them, which I do, then I didn't put that into these cost comparisons, but in reality, your gas boiler is not first in class, especially if it's not set up right. If you're going out at 70 degrees C, so you can't touch your radiators, it's probably on too hot and you're running about 60% efficient. And the plumbers that I've had around don't know this stuff, which is quite interesting.
My dad does know that stuff because he told me all about it. He serviced it in January and I was like...
That's good. So I actually, I like to work against the system. So there was an RHI available for heat pumps until like 31st of March last year, was it 2 years ago? So I decided I wanted to get the government to pay for my heat pump. So there were limits, there were EPC activities that had to happen, but I wanted to have a heat pump that was the most efficient throughout the year, and most especially in the winter. And so I ended up going for a borehole ground source heat pump, and the reason for that is that the water that comes out of the ground, it kind of goes around a big pipe loop. It's antifreeze in there really. It goes all the way 120 metres down and back up again, and it comes up at about 11 degrees centigrade all the time. So it doesn't matter if it's -6 outside or +30 outside. My heat comes from the ground, and it's like 11 degrees. So it kind of goes up one in the end of summer and down one at the end of spring. But when you work all that lot out, it becomes the most efficient in terms of the energy that you're getting. And I do a lot of working out. All of your data is available from a bunch called n3rgy.org, and you can put in your smart meter number for your gas and your electricity, and you can download all of your usage for the last year for every half an hour. I can get the same from my solar panel data as well, which I've had up for more than a year. So I can actually play tunes because I know how much my house used over the last year. So I can go, well, if I did this, then I'm replacing this over here with something else, and with the data sheets you can work out how much it will cost and how much carbon you'll save. So for me it was a ground source heat pump because it was better both in terms of carbon and in terms of money. So I'm running the bottom right hand side now, and right through this meeting today I turned on my hot water because I could see that the sun was shining on my panels. So whilst we've been chatting, I've actually heated up my hot water tank with the most efficient way, which is actually using your heat pump to heat your water, rather than a solar diverter. And when that was done, I started charging the electric car as well, because I could see that my partner was back home and she plugged in, so that was all good. So through the day, I load shift, which is what smart grid is. If I wanted to, I could probably turn the freezer on and off as well, because that's load shift too. So there's quite a few things in my house that are also on smart controls, and they're all on an app that I can get out from anywhere in the world if I feel like it, all for the princely sum of 250 quid, so happy days. So yeah, the more you get into this stuff, so for me it's like solar panels, they open the door, but once you've got comfortable with those, there's all this other stuff that you can do to like beat the system and to stop using electricity. So yeah, I guess that's just me, odd. Anyway, so bottom line was, so we got them in and it was in the middle of that massive storm. So these guys, it felt like they'd come off a North Sea oil rig. They didn't know what a flatbed was, they didn't know what a house was or a lawn, and they basically completely trashed the place. It was unbelievably stressful. However, I've got a pretty tight urban residence, and I was told by most people that I couldn't have a borehole because they couldn't get a drill in. But I got 2 separate quotes for 2 different drilling people, and basically they could get it in. It was pretty scary to watch, and if I'd done it again, there's a whole pile of things I would have done different, because they could have avoided a lot of that stress if I'd asked the right questions. But anyway, at least they've got a job not on an oil rig now. So yeah, so this thing was, that's the compressed air driver. This thing was really quiet, but it sprayed mud. Every time this drill goes down, it spins at the bottom, it sprays like grey stuff all over the place. Anyway, so could have done a bit better there. They're very nice chaps though. Let's give that a go. Usually they'll hit some water, and this is about 1 metre wide and 6 inches deep. So when they hit the water table there for about half an hour, that was quite interesting. But at the end of the day, there were some other things I wanted to do to my garden. I wanted to flatten it. I wanted to put an EV charger in, even though I didn't have an EV car. So I was able to put all the electrics in and dig the trenches. And then a year on, it was all, it looks much better. So there's about 400 hours of work I did. I didn't drill the hole, and I didn't do the guts of the plumbing, but I did pretty much everything else. And again, enjoyed it along the way. And I've actually been really happy with the heat pump all the way through. And again, the key thing about the radiators is, so we went through all of this, they'll spec you a house that is 23 centigrade when it's -6 outside. So that so isn't me. If it's -6 outside, it's 18 inside, or lower, and we're keeping warm a different way. And because my house is fully smart controlled, I only turn the heating onto any particular room a couple of hours before I know I'm going to be in it. Now I know this doesn't work if you've got teenagers or random, but some people's households, they have a rhythm and a regular way of using it. And by tuning into that, I now only heat the rooms a couple of hours before we get into them, and the heating goes off like half an hour before we come out of them, because again, I'm that sort of person. And it means that you can cut down the whole lot. So I don't really have a central heating controller, it's all just smart stuff from eBay, from China, and it works absolutely fantastically. Right. Oops, don't know that. Let's do another bit. Oh well, yeah, so things are getting pretty bad, and they're going to get even worse. So I would say that it's definitely a good idea to get on with it as soon as possible. So Matt's already said that Octopus are stacked out. They've got a fantastic heat pump offering, by the way. And I think as the penny drops with more people about what's happening, the lead times for getting this stuff done is going to go up. So if you're on the verge of doing anything, then really focus on it and get it underway. Because it's going to get a bit busy, I would say, sometime soon.